each. All right. Good morning, folks. Let's make sure we're all good here. There we are. Good morning. We are here. You already see the title. You see we'll be getting into results. Point blank, period, end of sentence. Results. That's what we're talking about today, guys. You got to stay away. You got to stay away from the people online that are looking for excuses, looking to give you excuses for certain things, and you got to be focusing on results. Let me just make sure we're good on all the plans. Guys, you got to stay away. All right, LinkedIn. What's up, LinkedIn? All right, let's do that. Excuses, looking to give you excuses. Certain things, YouTube. You gotta be focusing on results. Let me just make sure we're good. All right. All right. Yeah, testing. Test. 1, 2, 3. Test. All right, cool. We're all good. All right, you guys see what we're talking about today. Results over wokeness. All right. First and foremost, let me introduce myself for any newcomers coming in. My name is Aswan de Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do is I take the lessons, the teamwork lessons that I learned as a football player and as a football coach, and apply them to businesses. So you have a staff, an organization, a group of individuals that are moving as a cohesive team, very much like a championship high school football team. Imagine how cool that would be as a business owner to have every member of your staff, every employee walking into your doors, walking into your business, knowing their roles, having that passion, having that cohesion, having that hunger, right? Having that hunger as a high school football player and, going out winning a state championship or national championship, whatever it is you want to call it, whatever that version of that would be for your business. Imagine everybody around you having that vision and ready to roll. It's a beautiful thing. It's a man that's been a part of championship football teams. It's a beautiful thing. It'll be a beautiful thing to have your business running like that. So make sure you tap in with me when it comes to that. You are not going to find a more qualified person to teach your team or teach you how to really build that cohesion. All right. So first and foremost, before I get too into today's topic, let's get through some announcements here. If you are in the West Palm Beach area, West Palm Beach, Florida, and you are interested in free boxing lessons, make sure you contact me. Just hit the QR code that you see right there on the screen. I do them Saturday mornings every 2 weeks. And it's a great thing for you to learn. If it's available, I can't think of anybody that wouldn't want to learn the skill if it is made available, and it is completely free for you. Just hit the QR code. Next thing, like I mentioned, business owners, free guide.makeyourmove.com. This is a free guide for you to 10. What I did is I extracted the 10 things you need to be doing, 10 easy steps that you can take right now, things that you could be implementing in your business to make it so your organization moves as a cohesive team. All right. Just go to freeguide.makeitmove.com, send me your email, and a free guide will be sent over to you. And finally, patreon.com. The Patreon link is already set up. And, again, as we get closer and closer to 2020, as we get closer and closer to 2025, I'll be primarily, focusing on my Patreon members. There's something there for everybody. There's preseason, regular season, and postseason. No matter where you are at financially, there's going to be something for you. All right. So now that that's out the way, as far as today's topic, all right, it's results are replacing wokeness. And I'm going to use my hometown team I grew up a diehard fan of. I grew up a diehard fan of the Washington Redskins, and they are having an incredible year. Let me just move this real quick so you see it. They are having an incredible year. All right. As a person that is not really used to seeing them winning, they're having an incredible year. And not only are they having an incredible year, they're doing it with a first-year head coach. As you just saw on the screen, last year they went 4-13. Now we won 9. We're 9 and I believe it's 9-5 now. I believe it's 9-5. Let me make sure I'm getting my stats right here. I know we won 9 games. The 9 games. I'm just trying to remember how many games we lost. Hold on one second. Yes, 9-5. Right. So we're 9-5. Last year we're 4-13. We're 4-13. And you know, when I was watching them last week, I said to myself, the offense has drastically improved. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that we're ready, you know, we're Super Bowl contenders yet, because we did let that game get away from us a little bit. I mean, we were winning throughout the game. Even the way we lost the Dallas game and the way we almost gave up this past week at the end, it showed me, hey, even as a diehard Commanders or Redskins fan, whatever you want to call it, I know them as the Redskins, but I just support winning. I just want wins. Give a damn what you call them. I want wins. All right. So what I realized is that, again, we're not all the way there yet as a team. Who knows what can happen? I do think Jaden Daniels is has been a great addition. He has a lot to do with this turnaround as well. What we're going to be talking about today, though, is the way you as a business owner needs to be taking this lesson in when it comes to who you hire and how important it is to actually trust your own instincts. All right. This is really, really crucial because of a lot of the things that I even expressed to you last time, my last live on this past Wednesday, when it comes to racism, when it comes to these race hustlers out there that push a narrative. Again, they're going to push a narrative, and these race hustlers, I'm telling you right now, we're going to get into it as I move along today, but they are really, really, really good at what they do. They're really good at pushing a certain narrative. They're really good at making it so you are feeling like a victim, and the more and more you pay attention to that stuff, the worse off that you're going to be. Your focus needs to be on results. And today, again, we're going to be using the Washington Commanders and what they were doing, what the way they were able to turn this around. Again, last year it's 4-13. This year they are 9-5. And as you see on the screen, this is a true stat. This is a true result. They have led by 28 points in 4 games. All right. The previous week, 2 weeks ago, they blew the team out by, it was like 42-7 or something like that. And there was all this talk. All right. We're going to get into it. There was all this talk about how Kliff Kingsbury shouldn't have been an offensive coordinator. He shouldn't have gotten the opportunity and all this kind of stuff. There's all this rhetoric about that. And it was racially motivated. It was racially motivated because people were on screen. The mainstream media went out of their way and they tried to make Eric Bieniemy a head coach. Now, again, I got a lot of respect for Coach Eric Bieniemy. I think I actually, before I did this, I made sure I listened to him. I believe it was on Colin Cowherd. He recently did an interview on Colin Cowherd's podcast, and I listened to it before I started recording this. And he's an incredibly knowledgeable football coach. Really, really smart mind, really great football mind. He used to coach at Colorado. He was talking about Travis Hunter. He was just talking about, has a lot of the same viewpoints when it comes to football wise. So I don't doubt for 1 minute that Eric Bieniemy is an incredibly smart and brilliant football mind. The problem that has come, and it really isn't much of his fault, in my opinion, the more and more I think about it, the more I kind of analyze the situation, it's that we're in this culture of wokeness, and I'm going to define wokeness for you in a second. We're in this culture of wokeness where these people are pushing these agendas so they can continuously get paid. All right. So first and foremost, let me define wokeness for you so we're on the same page. It is the quality of being alert and the quality of being alert to and concerned about social injustice and discrimination. Now, again, you see when I say race hustlers are really good at what they do, this is part of what I mean. I'm going to read the definition to you again, and you can tell me, you can let me know wherever you're listening to this, in the comments, wherever, whenever you get a chance to tune into this, you can tell me if this is a bad thing or a good thing. When you read it, initially, tell me exactly the way you feel. All right, it says wokeness, the quality of being alert to and concerned about social injustice and discrimination. That sounds like a good thing, right? It sounds like that's something everyone should be aware of. That sounds like something, yes, of course, I want to be aware of injustice. Of course, I'm going to be aware of discrimination. Of course, these are things that you want to be aware of. However, if you're using it too often, if you're not careful, you can be using the quote unquote wokeness to bring in people to your business that are not qualified. All right, you could be using skin tone as a barometer towards who you're going to bring in and the questions that you're going to ask and how exactly you're going to move forward with your hiring process. All right. So here's what happened. It was the second Super Bowl. Not this year, because Eric Bieniemy last year, not the past, so the previous year. So the Kansas City Chiefs, when they went back to back. So the previous year when they beat the Eagles, they beat the Eagles. When Jalen Hurts was at the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, and I think it was Eric Bieniemy. I can't remember. I know they won back-to-back Super Bowls. Kansas City won back-to-back Super Bowls. All right, and it was the first one, not the second one, not the one that they recently won, but the first one in which Coach Bieniemy left. So he was the offensive coordinator there for that first one. He's the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs after a Super Bowl win. And he did not get a head coaching position. All right. And these were the headlines. I'm just going to put it out there now. These were the headlines. These were the headlines that were on First Take. Will Eric Bieniemy ever be an NFL head coach? There was all sorts of talk about, hey, should he be the head coach, or is it racist? It's not fair that he's not getting a head coaching job. All right. Which again, no, these weren't coming from the owners. All right. A lot of this was coming from national media trying to push certain agendas and put certain things out there. So I remember when this was going on, I actually wrote an article. I wrote an article because what Eric Bieniemy decided to do made me say to myself, I'm looking from the outside looking in. It made me say to myself, you know what? If I was an owner, I would not hire him either. So I wrote an article after the Chiefs won that Super Bowl, and I'm going to read it for you in a second. It's called No Effing Loyalty, NFL No Effing Loyalty. And you can see the date right there, September 2023. I wrote this article because of the fact that he left a Super Bowl team. He left a team that just won a Super Bowl not to become a head coach. He left the team particularly just to become an offensive coordinator for a team. Again, my Washington Commanders, my team, the team I grew up a fan of. He left a good situation in which you're winning Super Bowls to come be a part of a team that had no quarterback. You were dealing with Sam Howell at the time. This guy. Again, all right, we had real issues on the offensive side. So, again, your interest, actually, it's a really quick article. I'm going to read it for you real quick so you understand that I wrote this to challenge what the national narrative was all about. All right, it says Eric Bieniemy has by far, and this was, again, this was after he made the decision from leaving the Kansas City Chiefs, the team that just won the Super Bowl, and coming to become the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. And you saw what the title was, No Effing Loyalty. All right. This is the article I wrote. I said, Eric Bieniemy has by far been the most talked about offensive coordinator in the past 5 years. Quick backstory. Coach Eric Bieniemy spent 9 seasons as an offensive coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. 4 of those 9 years, he was the offensive coordinator for the team, and he had a ton of success. 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 Super Bowl wins. It seemed odd by many as to why Coach Eric Bieniemy was not offered a head coaching position. Being someone that at one point, I'm talking about myself now, being someone that at one point had aspirations of one day becoming a head coach in the National Football League, I was strictly interested in seeing what actions Coach Bieniemy would take, given all of this attention he was getting from the national media. That was what my personal interest was in the story, right? And then I go on to say, hey, as a current business owner that now has aspirations of one day being the person who hires and fires football coach, I'll say I would not have hired him either. Here's why. Football is the ultimate team game, and winning the Super Bowl should be the main agenda for everyone in the organization. Not, will I get a better job? And seeing that Coach Bieniemy just coached a team that won 2 Super Bowls and would leave to take the same position for a team that didn't even make the playoffs tells me his interest is not winning. It's about him being the guy that made the difference. And I keep going. This strategy has been accepted by most as climbing a corporate ladder. It sends the wrong message to the players that he's in charge of, simply because it wasn't a promotion he got for another team. He is the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, not the head coach. This, as an owner of a business, and this is why I want to talk to you guys as business owners, as an owner of a business, the very first thing you should be trying to extract from a potential candidate is, will this guy be loyal? This guy or girl be loyal to, or guy or lady, guy or lady, be loyal to loyal. It's your responsibility to ask that question for your loyal customers, which in this case would be the fans that spend thousands of dollars to support the team. Therefore, as a business owner, take a lesson from the mistake that the NFL makes every single year and make loyalty priority number one when hiring new employees. Point blank, end of sentence. Loyalty has got to be at the forefront of how you operate and how you build your business. Loyalty is going to be how you get results, however the loyalty comes. All right. So here's what happened, and here's the way it played out. And the reason I'm talking about this is because if you're a not careful owner, I'm talking directly to you. You're the person in charge. As a person in charge, whether it's the owner, whether it's the manager, whether it's if you're in charge of bringing people in to an establishment, you have to listen to you. You have to listen to your own instincts. You have to have enough trust in your own instincts, in your own gut, that you're making the right decision with the person that you bring in. If you spend any time at all, anytime, please hear me from my heart what I'm telling you this. If you spend any time at all listening to the folks who are on the outside looking in, you will fail and you will be miserable. All right, because what happened this past offseason, the Commanders went through a coaching change. They got rid of Coach Ron Rivera, who, again, great coach in my opinion. I think he's doing some TV now, but great coach. Me as a defensive guy, I was rooting for Coach Ron Rivera. As a Redskins fan, diehard, I've seen, went from North Turner to Marty Schottenheimer to Mike Shanahan to Jim Zorn, back to Joe Gibbs, Terry Robinski. I can list out tons of coaches that I've seen coach my hometown Washington Redskins. There's a ton of them. I was rooting for Ron Rivera. I really was. I like him as, again, defensive guy, all that stuff. But he had to go. This wasn't getting it done. 4-13 wasn't getting it done. All right, he had to go. Something had to give, right? And the replacement that they brought in, it made so much sense to me, because Dan Quinn was somebody that I was hearing about, because he went to Salisbury. He coached the Legion of Boom, which was the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl team. He, took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl, although they, kind of blew it that year. People know him, or he still gets a lot of slack because of the way they fell off after that loss to the Patriots when he was the head coach in Atlanta and all that kind of stuff. But the point is, the man knows what he's doing. All right. The man knew what he was doing. He knew how to coach better he knew how to make decisions better than, I hate to put his name out there, but I'm going to just use Stephen A. Smith as an example. He knows football. He knows more football than Stephen A. Smith or anybody that works for Disney and works for ESPN at this point. Works for ESPN and feels like they can just tell coaches who they should hire because of some wokeness or because of some of the narrative that you're trying to push out to your audience. All right. So here were the headlines. So Dan Quinn. All right. Let me just back up a little bit. So Dan Quinn gets hired. Aside from all of the criticism and the skepticism, the questions were, okay, is he going to keep Eric Bieniemy on staff? Which was a question like that doesn't even make sense in my opinion. Seeing that we just went 4-13, We just went 4-13. In my opinion, everyone needs to go. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable of a record. That's not a standard that we should be in place of, that we should be okay with. So Dan Quinn comes in and he hires Kliff Kingsbury, who's the offensive coordinator now, that's seeing these results, actually putting up points. The results that you see on the left, they're actually putting up points this year under Kliff Kingsbury. Understandably, yes, I know what you're gonna say. Oh, they got Jaden Daniels now, so all of a sudden, everything is fine, which is fair. It's a fair point, but at the end of the day, Jaden Daniels is still a rookie, and when you watch him play, if you actually do watch the game, the guy's human. He's going to make some mistakes, but like the national media always does, they're going to only point to the highlight reel things. They want to point to the things that he's doing well, and they're not going to necessarily analyze and break down the game for you on ESPN. That's just not what they're going to do. Instead, what ESPN is going to do is stuff like this. Let me move the banner so you see it. Stuff like this. This was an actual matter of fact. Let me not even show you this. I'm gonna show you this one, but because that's Stephen A. Smith's show. That's his show, and I listen to it here and there. But this right here was on ESPN. This was a thumbnail. This was an actual thumbnail. This was an actual segment right here where you get the face of the entire network, having an issue with a coach being hired. And I'm not gonna play the clip because I think I've tried doing it. I'm gonna work on not doing as many clips when it comes to this, because I'm realizing that seeing that my channel is monetized, I'm not allowed to play certain things from certain networks, and sometimes it can get kind of tedious trying to keep up with all the clips and all that kind of stuff. And I'm gonna try to avoid doing that, all right? Especially if it's a mainstream media network and stuff like that, you get flagged when it comes to your eligibility for monetization and all that kind of stuff on that particular video. But anyway, when it comes to stuff like this, right? When it comes to headlines like not this one, it's this one. When it comes to headlines like this, Stephen A. takes issue with Kingsbury to Washington. If you go and listen to what his take was, and his take was a lot similar to other folks, all right? It was, the fact that Kliff Kingsbury went to Arizona because he was a former head coach at Arizona without making much of a splash at Texas Tech, the fact that he got a head coaching job there wasn't fair, quote unquote, when you have other coaches, and he primarily uses the word minority coaches or black coaches when it comes to the fact that Kliff Kingsbury got the position with the Arizona Cardinals, didn't do much there, gets fired there. Then he goes to USC as an offensive assistant, which is what he was doing last year. He was an offensive assistant at USC, where the number one pick, the quarterback, Caleb Williams, that's where he played. He was there. And now all of a sudden he gets an offensive coordinator position with the Washington Commanders, right? So he was basically saying that it seemed unfair as to how he gets this opportunity when you have an Eric Bieniemy or other qualified black coaches that aren't getting these opportunities. And he actually said something I actually agree with, because he said something along the lines of Kliff Kingsbury's relationship with quarterbacks, it's what's getting him the positions that he's getting. And my take is, yes, that is in fact, that even, let's say that is true. Let's just play his game and say that is true. What exactly is wrong with that? Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? That's not a problem. That's exactly the way it should be. All right. This is why you have to make sure you stay clear of the national media and what they try to feed to you. And I'm using Stephen A. as an example right now, but I do have some respect for him. I read The Straight Shooter. I read his book. I'm very inspired by the work he does. But when it comes to the football stuff, I just can't. I go somewhere else to really take it. I can't take it with the football stuff. Because what I'm telling you is that isn't a problem. It's not a problem that because Kliff Kingsbury had a great relationship with all of these college quarterbacks, which he did, all right, and it started with Johnny Manziel back when they were in Texas A&M. Then he had Pat Mahomes. I believe he had done some things with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, last year had a great relationship with Caleb Williams because he was the offensive assistant there. You know, you have, if you're the Commanders or if you're Coach Quinn, if you know you have the second overall pick and you know you have to rebuild from this, right? Rebuild from this 4-13 record, you know you got to bring in a guy that has relationships and knows the culture around these quarterbacks, knows exactly how to coach these quarterbacks, how to work with these guys, how to develop an offense, how to make sure certain schemes and certain things are in place, whether it's through offensive linemen, whether it is better receivers, whether it's a better running back, whether it's a quality tight ends that can do multiple packages. You understand that mindset. Why would you not give him the offensive coordinator position? It was a brilliant move. And obviously, it was a brilliant move given the position that they were in. And I want to be very clear when I say this. It's not me comparing Coach Kingsbury to Coach Eric Bieniemy. All right, because in my opinion, in a lot of ways, coaching is very overrated. You're only as good as the actual talent that you have on the field, right? And in this situation, we see a coach who at one point was the hottest, or was being said by the media. This is what the media was putting out there. Eric Bieniemy is the best offensive coordinator in the entire world. But again, who does he have? He had Pat Mahomes. He had Tyreek Hill. He had Travis Kelce. And he also had a head coach in Andy Reid who's been doing this for years. Again, I grew up a Redskins fan, folks, a diehard Redskins fan. I watched Andy Reid twice. We used to have to play the Eagles twice. We played the Eagles twice a year. Played the Eagles twice a year. And coincidentally, that's who we're playing this week, right? Played the Eagles twice a year. And Andy Reid every time would come up with these screen passes. He was a nightmare offensive coordinator. All right. So, he's the head coach, but he's also calling the plays. He has a system, a nightmare system for anybody that's on the defensive front. It's just a system that he got in place. All right. That's just the truth about it. So when Eric Bieniemy was with the Chiefs, not taking anything away from his football IQ, because again, I think Coach Bieniemy is a brilliant football mind, but he's got the GOAT. He's got the GOAT in Andy Reid that is actually calling the plays. So, in my opinion, it made more sense to, stay there and be a part of what he was doing, because you have a great offense, you have a generational talent at quarterback, and then Andy Reid is there calling the plays, dialing it up, and making things happen. And you're winning games, which should be the most important thing, right? So when it comes to Kliff Kingsbury and the hire of Kliff Kingsbury, it does make sense. It made a ton of sense for him to come in as the offensive coordinator. It's not like he was coming in as the head coach, coming in as the offensive coordinator, knowing that you have the second overall pick, and you see what the relationship with him and Jaden Daniels has been, and you see what the results have been. Now, here's the big part. Here's the big, most important part. And as I'm focused more so on the folks who are minorities, you can call Black, Hispanic, whatever. If you're the Eric Bieniemy in this situation, all right. Let's say as you've been listening to me talk, and you're the person who was looked over for jobs because of skin color. You were looked over for this job because of your gender. You were looked over for this. The national narrative that is floating out there is that people like you aren't getting opportunities because of some exterior factor, something you can't control, and there's something that you can't control that's making it so you aren't getting opportunities. The same way Eric Bieniemy, quote unquote, wasn't getting an opportunity to be a head coach because he was a Black coach. And that's what people were running with. All right. Even though he never said that. He has never pointed to race and said, hey, because of my race, I'm not getting a head coaching opportunity. In fact, when I listened to him the other day, he actually said on Colin Howard's show, he said, hey, I look at every single interview. I look at every single setback. I look at every single time I didn't get a head coaching job. I look at it as an opportunity to improve. How can I get better from this situation? Which is more so the mentality you should take. All right. But not a lot of people listen to what Eric Bieniemy is saying. They're more so listening to the Stephen A. Smiths of the world and the ESPNs and this narrative that they like to push. Here is the most recent one. So this past, just to give you some context before I show you this last photo here. This past year, 2024, Eric Bieniemy was the believe it was either the offensive coordinator or the running backs coach for UCLA. I can't remember which one it was, right? But the reason that he was in that position was because the UCLA football program just brought on a new head coach. His name was Deshaun Foster, and Deshaun Foster was a running back for UCLA. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys, matter of fact, I'll just fact check it now because I think Coach Bieniemy coached Deshaun Foster. Let me check this really quick. Hold on. Eric Bieniemy. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm right when I say this. Hold on, real quick. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure I'm factual when I say this because it actually further proves my point in terms of relationships. And so Eric, he played, yes, because I remember, Deshaun Foster played. He played at UCLA 1998 to 2001. And let me go to Eric Bieniemy real quick. Let me see when he coached there. 2000. Yes. So what happened was, there we go. So, right. So, I got you. So listen, exactly. So what happened was Deshaun Foster, when he played, he was a running backs coach. He was the running back for UCLA, one of the well-known running backs. And then after he had left, Eric Bieniemy was the running backs coach, Colorado and UCLA. Yeah, so they have a relationship that spans over 30 years at this point, right? They knew each other back when Deshaun was playing, and obviously Coach Bieniemy was just getting his foot in the door as an assistant coach, and that's where he started. So he leaves the Washington Commanders and takes a position at a college after all the talking, all of the ESPN heads and all that stuff, after everything, the segments, everything, everybody talking about segments, bringing old coaches on. Why doesn't Eric Bieniemy have a head coach job? All this stuff we had to hear. He goes and takes an assistant position at a college. And this past year, I don't even like to use the term fired because, again, this is a relationship business. I believe in my heart, I don't know this to be true for a fact, but I believe in my heart, given everything that I know about the game, given everything I know about how these quote unquote jobs get offered and how they're offered and who's necessarily the person that is going to be running things. There's so much, the way the money comes into the program, how the money is going to be sustained, what the coaches are going to take home, when they get paid, all of this stuff, all of the factors that go on. I don't believe that Eric Bieniemy was necessarily fired from this UCLA job. I personally believe what the statement actually says, which is a statement was put out there, which they mutually decided to part ways. Now, again, here was the response from the national media. I'm done defending Bieniemy. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so how do we go from this, we go from this, to that? I'm going to show you again. We go from this, to that. Now you're done defending. Now you're done defending the guy. And this is why what we're discussing today is focusing more so on what the results are going to be, and you're only going to get those sustainable results, those long-term results, if you take into account where the relationship is. If you really break down everything we've been discussing today, all right, and I'm going to connect it to your business, connect it to how you can apply it to your business in a second. But if you break down everything we're discussing today, at the core of it is relationships. The core of it is actual relationships, and how you can go about creating opportunities for yourself, or creating opportunities for your business, or creating opportunities for your staff to come in and have a sustainable staff. It's going to boil down to relationships. It's not going to boil down to, some statement or some political statement that you're trying to make. It's not going to boil down to you being alert or aware of injustice and discrimination or anything like that. It's going to boil down to the relationship you have with a person, and the results ultimately are going to stem based on how well that relationship is built. That's the way the success is going to essentially be had. That's the way the results that you want are eventually going to be had. All right. Because if you think about the whole ordeal, all right, and I'm going to go back, I'll make sure I'm reminding you of this. If you go back to this whole thing, I'm just going to break down everything for you. 2023, a year ago. All right. When you think about how bad the season was, it's 4-13 now to 9-5, how the transition happened. At first, it starts with brand new ownership. All right, the Commanders have brand new owners. They got rid of Dan Snyder. Now the Magic. I don't know Magic Johnson. Let me make sure I get the right new owner for the Commanders, because I want to make sure I get his name right. Yeah, that's right. Josh Harris. He also. I think he also owns the 76ers. So again, Josh Harris comes in, brand new ownership, just a fresh breath of fresh air, right? Breath of fresh air, especially for us who've been suffering for years, rooting like diehard Redskins fan, been rooting for this team for years, and they have just sucked, man. They brought in coach after coach. You swear they paid big money, whether it's Hainsworth, Josh Norman, the amount of money that they spent on players and coaches. As fans, we deserve a damn winning season, at least a winning season, for Christ's sake. So anyway, they bring in Josh Harris, takes over the team. They get rid of Ron Rivera. Again, great guy, love him. Anybody that's played for him, I'm sure, would say, look, he's an absolutely stand-up, first-class type of a guy. But results are results. You have to get rid of him, even though, again, he's minority coach, all that stuff. It's just time to focus on the results, right? You bring in a coach, Dan Quinn, who has some ties with the Maryland area, having played at Salisbury, but also was the defensive coordinator of the Legion of Boom, that Super Bowl that the Seahawks won. You shore up the defense. You basically replace Ron Rivera with another defensive coach, right? Another defensive coordinator type of a coach. And, I know the title is head coach, but I'm 1,000% sure he spends the majority of his time focusing on the defense, and he lets his offensive guys do what the offensive guys do. Because of that, because you're the head coach and you don't have an offensive background, the person that you bring in as an offensive coordinator now, it becomes that much more important that this offensive coordinator understands the importance of relationships. All right. You're talking about, I want to make sure we're making this clear. All right. Business owners, this is huge for you to understand when you're building a program, because just because you call yourself the owner or the head person, you have to know where your strengths are. Dan Quinn is a defensive guy. He's a defensive guy. Coach Quinn is a defensive guy. Okay, let me make sure this is good. Yes. Dan Quinn is known in the league as the defensive coordinator, right? The names like Legion of Boom, there's a reason that Bobby Wagner is the linebacker for the Washington Commanders, because he was on those great Seattle Seahawks team. He's a defensive guy, and if you're a defensive guy, especially in the NFL, that's such an offensive it's a league that's the rules pretty much favor the offense. The fan bases, they like offenses, and the things are catered to the offense. They have those offensive guys. They have extra benefits when it comes to the NFL. But just leave it like that, right? So when you're a defensive guy taking on a head coach, who you bring in as that offensive coordinator, pretty much half your team is going to be looking at that offensive coordinator as if he is the actual head coach. They're going to be spending more time with the offensive coordinator than they are the head coach. They're going to be spending more time listening to him and, following that vision. So when you make the decision on who you're going to hire, it has to be more than simply, oh, this coach is qualified, which again, Coach Bieniemy is very qualified to be, I'd say he's qualified to even be a head coach. He's obviously very qualified to be an offensive coordinator, even though he was incredibly qualified to do the job. Was he going to build the relationships that a Kliff Kingsbury can build? Right? Was he going to build the relationships? We're going to have the relationships that a Kliff Kingsbury has with this young group of this next generation of quarterbacks that we're about to draft. Seeing that we have the number 2 overall pick, that position and that hire was incredibly important. And you see what the results are. Booyah! That's what the results are. The results are now it's a team that actually has an offensive presence, and they have big playmakers, they have an explosive offense, and they have a situation in place now where they have their actual contenders. Again, myself as a fan, I can watch the games, I can see the games. They're not, I don't believe that we're necessarily Super Bowl contenders, but I do believe that if you can keep a strong nucleus, if you can keep this group of guys together, and you can just see Jaden Daniels, if you see him develop, if you're patient with him, this can be something in which you see success over a long period of time. And I'm going to close you out with just the principle of, when you're in business, as an owner of a business, you got to remove yourself. I cannot tell you how important it is. Hear me. All right. You got to remove yourself from the outside noise. You got to remove yourself on what's trendy and what's going to be something that's going to get a bunch of clicks and a bunch of likes, because what this network likes to do, and this is true amongst a lot, just look at the kind of headlines that they're giving. That a guy takes issue with Kliff Kingsbury being an offensive coordinator, right? You have to block out the noise. All right. This is really the main thing of what we're talking about today. Blocking out the noise, removing what wokeness would be in your situation, and focusing on what are the results that I'm going to get with this candidate, and understanding what those results are. What are the metrics that we need to be measuring? In this case, it's wins and losses, actual points on the scoreboard. That's how you measure success, when it comes to picking an offensive coordinator. Just take that principle and align it with your bottom line, I don't care whether you're selling subscription services or whether you're selling cheeseburgers. I don't know, whatever it is you're selling, you need to have a number, a measurable, and then bring in a person to say, this is the measurable you need to be hitting this day and that day and that day and that day and that day. And you need it to be incredibly crystal clear what the measurables are, what the results are. And when you make that crystal clear, then you can bring in the right person. And then when you bring in that right person, now the question becomes, what are the relationships that person has with the folks that can get me the results? Because again, one thing I agree with Stephen A. Smith on is the fact that, hey, Kliff Kingsbury got hired as the offensive coordinator because of his relationships with college coaches. My only thing is, ain't a damn thing wrong with that, especially when you're talking about a team that went 4-13 last year, and you are a brand new head coach, and you need to make sure everything is cleaned out. We're cleaning house and bringing in brand new people. All right. So that's all I got for you guys today. Before I actually close you out, make sure I put it up here again. Patreon. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link. It's patreon.com/as144. And we will be diving into all of this material in a much more detail-oriented way, taking questions. Man, I'm telling you, 2025 is going to be unbelievable. And I'm telling you, also, I'll be back here. So the next one I'll be doing Monday. I may do it Wednesday. I know Wednesday's Christmas, and then Friday I may do it, but I'm definitely going to be back here on Monday because there's a whole lot that I got to get to. We got NFL football and we got college football playoffs being played at the same time on the same day. Oh, man. So I'm going to have a ton of material, a ton of things to address, a ton of things to talk about this coming Monday. So I'll be back here Monday. I don't know what time yet. It'll probably be sometime in the morning. But yes, we got a lot to get to this week, and it should be a really, really fun weekend. People like me again who love the game of football, watch the game of football, analyze the game of football, break down the game of football. This time of year is absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So all that being said, again, one more time, we put it up here one more time, patreon.com/as144. Tap into the Patreon link. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.